Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with David, King Mashiach. This one's called The Two Davids. So during the days of King David, Israel were in a perfect state, or perfect state almost. As we said in last class, David and Solomon were as one, as Messiah, Ben David. In the end of days, it's going to be the soul of David. So they're also one. The soul of David and Ben David, it's all essentially one. This is what we're going to talk about. So Solomon was the literal Ben David, son of David. And our sages say that during their reign, Israel were perfect, as they both had a hand in building the temple from its foundations by David. Some also say that it was David who built the actual gates of the temple, and Solomon the actual building, the temple itself. This is all in Bereshit Rabbah Vayishlach. Now, both were needed in order for Israel to merit to build the temple. You don't get to merit just to build a temple, right? Our sages say in a generation where the temple is not built in its generation, it is as if it was destroyed in its generation, meaning you don't deserve to have a temple. So that makes us here today, where we are, right? Okay, we have to ask ourselves, why do we not deserve to have a temple? Look at the state, as in the modern state of Israel, and you will understand. And if you ask, why then was the world not redeemed at that time, if Israel were perfect? Very simply because it was not the age of Mashiach, as we discussed in the Governance of Time series and in many other places. Mashiach could not have come before the Gregorian year of 239 CE. Only at that point onward did the Messianic age enter into existence, meaning everything beforehand it could not have happened. It was an impossibility. We entered into the Messianic stage at that point. Everything before that was the age of Torah, and we've been through this in the previous series. Now, granted, not every single man, woman, and child of Israel were in a perfect state of being, because the revelation of the truth only comes at the end of the 6,000 years where we are at. But you will see that during these times, there was no bloodshed, no sexual immorality, and no idolatry within the borders of Israel. And that is why they merited for the temple to be built and have leaders like David and Solomon. Baruch Hashem, at that time, Israel were truly blessed. And it showed. Not to say that Israel are not blessed today. Of course we are, except as we learned in that series. Now is the hiding of the face, the doubly hiding of the face, as said in the end of Deuteronomy, Astel estil panai mehem, in those times, for the sake of the final revelation. Peekaboo. But anyway, David was the closest example of Mashiach throughout his days. In other words, of what Mashiach will be. We've learned from past teachings on this matter over the years that Mashiach, in order for him to even be considered Mashiach, this is called Becheskat Mashiach, as in he could be a potential candidate to be Mashiach. In order for this to happen, must emulate David in all his ways. King David was also, like Moses and Abraham, one of the most humblest men to have ever lived. He did not sleep under a roof the first third of his life until after he fought Goliath. He never lost a battle. He was the greatest Torah scholar in Israel once his teachers passed. He was the head of the Sanhedrin, and he judged the people righteously according to halacha. That's both written and oral law. They also gave new paskin over there. In other words, new halachot, the way Israel should live according to the Torah in the days of David. He studied Torah and wrote Psalms day and night. He barely slept and fought the Lord's wars with zeal. He united the tribes. That's one of the most important things. He united all 12 tribes, and that they are the ones who came to him and said, we want you to be king over us. David Melech Israel Chai V'Kayam. He expanded the borders of Israel and brought peace and prosperity in a way that had never been seen before and never since. And again, Solomon inherited this, and because of his wisdom, he was able to build on top of it. But all the foundations, that was David. He inspired Israel to return to God, all of Israel to return to God. Again, we don't have a leader. Since then, we have not had a leader that did this, right? To return to God and be the best that they could be. It was in his merit that God revealed to him the place of the temple. It didn't happen beforehand, right? In other words, right here, he saw the sword of the angel of death pointing exactly over there, right there on the hill. Yep, right there. The place of the temple and its instructions, which he had given to his son, King Solomon, in order to complete. This was David in a nutshell. We're going to go through all David. Like we said, we got some time, you and I. This was David in a nutshell, and there was no one with that kind of influence who brought Israel back to their Father in heaven since the days of David and Solomon, other than Hezekiah, and which was David's descendant, and this was only for a brief period of time, and it was also done kind of under duress. But in other words, he put the sword on the doors of the Batei Midrash, and he said, if anybody doesn't learn Torah, this is what's waiting for you. And they needed that also to repel the Assyrian army. They weren't touched. Not a single arrow crossed the valley. So all these things happened exactly how they needed to happen, but still, nothing close to David have we ever seen. Here's what the Rambam says about who Mashiach needs to be in the end of days in Hilichot Melachim, the Way of Kings, chapter 11. So all these, I'm going to read the words of the Rambam. In the future, King Mashiach will arise and renew the Davidic dynasty, restoring it to its initial sovereignty. He will build the temple and gather the dispersed of Israel. Has this been done yet? No. Okay, so we have yet to see Mashiach. All right. Then in his days, in the days of Mashiach, the observance of all the statutes, all the chukim and mitzvot and mishpatim will return to their previous state. Everyone will be following the Torah completely, no question. We will offer sacrifices in the temple, observe the sabbatical and jubilee years according to all their particulars as described by the Torah. Anyone, this is important, this is part of our charter, anyone who does not believe in Mashiach or does not await his coming, and unfortunately, I've spoken to many Jews who are like, Mashiach, what's this? A concept, it's an error, it's a this, it's a man-made thing. What, there's going to be one guy and is going to come and save us? No, that's a different religion. That's not how Judaism works, okay? But to not understand the concept of Mashiach and what we're supposed to see in him, what does he say? Denies not only the statements of all the other prophets, because everybody prophesied about the end times, but those of the Torah and Moses, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu. So, wow, if you don't believe in Mashiach, it's as if you go against the prophets and against the Torah of Moses and everything there. So, in other words, you're denying God in that sense. The Torah testifies to his coming, as said in Deuteronomy 30, verses 3 to 5, which states, God will bring back your captivity and have mercy upon you. He's talking to Israel. Right? You know, the other religion, they say, oh, no, we are the new Israel. No, you ain't, because Deuteronomy. He will again gather you from among the nations. Even if your diaspora is at the ends of the heavens, God will gather you up from there and bring you to the land. These explicit words of the Torah include all the statements made by all the prophets. Reference to Mashiach is also made in the portion of Bil'am, right? Remember the prophecies in Numbers 24? Who prophesied about two anointed kings. Do we see two anointed kings? We're about to. The first anointed king, David, who saved Israel from her oppressors. And the final anointed king, who will arise from his descendants and save Israel in the end of days. That passage is in Numbers 24, 17 to 18. And this is what it says. I see it, but not now. This refers to David. I perceive, who is 300 and change years in the future from the time this prophecy was given. I perceive it, but not then, but not in the near future. This refers to King Mashiach. A star shall go forth from Jacob. This is David. And a staff shall arise in Israel. This refers to King Mashiach. crushing all of Moab's princes. This refers to David, as we could see in 2 Samuel 8:2, where it says he smote Moab and measured them with a line, decimating all the sons of Seth's all of Seth's descendants. This refers to the Messianic king about whom Zechariah said in 9:10, he will rule from sea to sea. Edom will be demolished. This refers to David, as in 2 Samuel 8:6 it says, Edom became servants of David. Seir will be destroyed. This refers to the Messianic king, as Obadiah 1:21 says. Saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esav. If a king will arise from the house of David who diligently contemplates the Torah and observes its mitzvot, as prescribed by the written law and by the oral law, as David, his ancestor, and will compel all of Israel to walk in the way of the Torah and rectify the breaches in its observance and fight the wars of God, we may, with assurance, consider him Mashiach. This is Chizkat Mashiach. This is, whoa, he did all that. He might just be Messiah, but we don't know yet. What do we say? All the Torah backwards and forwards, everything that was ever discussed with complete understanding and chidushim. Okay? That's Mashiach, according to David, right? Unifying Israel, everybody is under Torah and mitzvot. Beautiful. Now, meaning, like we said, he is not yet Mashiach, but may be considered thus far as a candidate because there is still more that he needs to do. So here are the last three things to check off over here. If he succeeds in all the above, which has yet to have been done since the days of King David, then he builds the temple in its place, gathers the dispersed of Israel, then he is definitely the Mashiach. He will then improve the entire world, motivating all the nations to serve God together. As Zephaniah 3:9 states, I will transform the peoples to a pure language, Hebrew, that they all will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. Today, everybody serves whatever. Okay. He continues, however, if he did not succeed to this degree or was killed, he surely is not the Redeemer promised by the Torah. Rather, he should be considered as all the other proper and complete kings, Hashlemim Haksherim, of the Davidic dynasty who died. In other words, if he did the first 7 minus the building of the temple and the final gathering of the exiles from the line of David, okay, he wasn't Mashiach, but he was definitely from the line of David, you see? Now, God caused him to arise only to test the many, as Daniel 11:35 states, and some of the wise men will stumble, to try them, to refine and to clarify until the appropriate time, because the set time is in the future. Everything that happens until Mashiach will come and do all these things that we just said, everything is a test from God. Now, he continues and says the obvious. Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be the Mashiach and was executed by the court, was also alluded to in Daniel's prophecies, as said in 11:14. The vulgar among your people shall exalt themselves in an attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble. Can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity, he asks? All the prophets spoke of Mashiach as the Redeemer of Israel and their Savior, who would gather their dispersed and strengthen their observance of the mitzvot. In contrast, Christianity caused the Jews to be slain by the sword, their remnants to be scattered and humbled, the Torah to be altered, and the majority of the world to err and serve a God other than the Lord. True story. So you see, we definitely know who is not Mashiach. And we also know who he is. Ezekiel 37, 24, 25. My servant David shall be king over them, and one shepherd shall be for them all, and they shall walk in my ordinances and observe my statutes and perform them. That's mitzvot of the Torah. And they shall dwell on the land that I have given to my servant, to Jacob, that's Israel, wherein your forefathers lived, and they shall dwell upon it, they and their children's children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. Okay, thus saith the Lord. Who's arguing with that? Some people do. You see, the state that must be is the state that was during that previous time. What we're going into, we can learn from because it actually happened. The time that was closest to the rectified state of Israel. All Israel must follow Torah, as said, and they shall walk in my ordinances and observe my statutes and perform them. And again, of David, it says in Ezekiel 34, 23, 24, and I shall put up over them one shepherd, and he will shepherd them, namely my servant David. He will shepherd them, and he will be for them as a shepherd. And I, the Lord, shall be to them for a God, and my servant David will be a prince in their midst. I, the Lord, have spoken. And again in Hosea 3, 4, and 5, for the children of Israel shall remain for many days, having neither king, nor prince, nor sacrifice, nor pillar, nor ephod, nor teraphim. Afterwards shall the children of Israel return, and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and they shall come trembling to the Lord, and to his goodness at the end of days. Therefore, this has yet to happen. This is going from David to David. Many days indeed we have neither king nor prince nor honest man in any leadership position. And again in Jeremiah 30, 7 to 10, which speaks specifically of this time now and also the times to come. Oh, for the day is great, with none like it, and it is a time of distress, a time of trouble for Jacob, through which he shall be saved. Ve'et tzara hi le'Yaakov umimena ivashea. And it shall be on that day, says the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke off your neck, and I will break your shackles. And strangers shall no longer enslave them, and they shall serve the Lord their God and David, their king, whom I will set up for them, asher akim lahem. And you fear not my servant Jacob, says the Lord, and do not be dismayed, O Israel, for behold, I save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall again be silent and at ease, and no one will frighten him. There is no debate here, as the prophets clearly state, according to the word of God, who is King Messiah? That is David, aka Mashiach ben David, aka the hidden Messiah, as the Messiah is David himself. Are you confused yet? Remember, the points we made. Remember everything we discussed. Now let's get into explaining them. In Sanhedrin 98b, it says, Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, the Holy One, blessed be he, is destined to establish another David for Israel as the Mashiach, as it is stated, and they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will establish for them. Jeremiah 30, verse 9, what we read. It is not stated, I established, but I will establish. Jeremiah came after David, right? In other words, in the future, I will establish, indicating that the name of the future king will be David. Rav Papa said to Abaye, but isn't it written, and my servant David shall be their prince forever? Ezekiel 37:25. Like I said, remember what we read. We're going through all the verses. Indicating that King David himself will rule over Israel. Abaye said they will rule in tandem, meaning who is this? Who's the servant David and their prince forever? What's going on here? He's saying they will rule in tandem like an emperor and viceroy. The Messiah will be a king and David will be a second in command. Now, the word they use in Hebrew for emperor is actually Caesar, Kesar. Now remember, the greatness of King Messiah does not take away from the greatness of King David, as they come from the same root and are essentially one. The Maharal of Prague, in his book The Eternal Israel, chapter 40, says, "The viceroy to Caesar will be Kodesh, holy, and Caesar will be Kodesh Kodashim, holy of holies, for whatever has been anointed is completely holy. My servant David shall be prince." This refers to the first David, and these matters are very deep, he says. Now, there's obviously much to understand here. Are there two Davids? Think about it like this. The first man was called Adam. Ha'adam harishon, it's called Adam. So Adam was his name, is his name, and also Adam is what we all are. Or rather, Bnei Adam. You are the sons of Adam, right? Meaning every single living thing that came forth from Adam himself and onward is called Ben Adam, the son of Adam. So too, every son that comes from the lineage of David is called either David or Ben David, right? Okay. Just like God said to Israel, Adam atem, you are Adam. So when we call the Mashiach, either it's the same because we are including the root of the soul, and these two are included in the physical bloodline sense as well. So you have the root of the soul, meaning from the neshama, and also the actual bloodline. The spiritual meets physical. And they're both from the same source. Okay, so going back, how can we explain that there will be two Davids? We're bringing different perspectives of the sages over the years, all based on Torah, of course. The soul of Mashiach was created from the beginning. This we know, this we've already learned. When David was born, David proper was born, is when that root came to light. We call it tzemach, shoot, right? Because it comes from the ground. All of a sudden, poof, from the ground, there's David. Where did he come from? Let's say the actual lineage. It started with Abraham praying for the sake of Lot, right? Lot and his daughters, from that impurity, going all the way over there on the side of the mother. There you have Ruth, the Moabite, right? And there she joined with, what's his name? It's one of those moments. Don't worry about it. It's an age thing. In any case, not Oved, his father. Goodness sakes. Oh, Boaz. Okay. Forgive me. Anyway, but from the father's lineage, it had to be, how do we know it's David? Because it went all the way from Judah down over there to David. That is always from the side of the father. So in other words, the Mashiach it's less relevant. In fact, it's not relevant from the mother's side. For instance, today the mother determines if you are a Jew. But back then, the father determined which tribe you come from. So saying, yeah, his mother was from Judah, who cares? It's about who the mother married. David's mother was from the tribe of Dan. Okay. So, like we said, when David was born, that root then all of a sudden came to light, because no one sees it grow beneath the ground until poof, here's Mashiach. But it all started with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and through the lineage of Judah. Because David, because he was who he was, he merited to be that physical conduit for the spark of Mashiach in the world. But Mashiach himself is not dependent upon David as he was here before, you see? And when Mashiach arrives, he and David, his father, meaning bloodline, will actually be one. Except that Mashiach will be on such a high level that the world will still need a David proper to be a conduit, just as he was during his reign. So you see, the Maharal knew what he was doing by finishing his thoughts were, and these matters are very deep. Meaning, if you understand, if you know, you know. That's the very definition of Kabbalah, to receive. I guarantee you, nobody teaches Kabbalah online or in Kabbalah centers or anything. That's not what Kabbalah is, okay? If one knows, then he does not share. And if one shares what he thinks he knows, he clearly does not know. All this, of course, regarding the hidden secrets of the Torah that only specific individuals have merited to carry the burden of their knowledge from generation to generation. And that is how it is taught. From teacher to student, from teacher to student, in person, in no other way, in no other form, because people don't need to know this stuff. Look at what people are doing with Kabbalah today. Everybody learns Kabbalah today, but it's not Kabbalah. So Great. Anyway, I can share some things with you, however, obviously I don't know any of these great hidden secrets, and if I do know something that is, I'm not going to share it over here, not on this platform anyway. So, here's the difference between the servant and the son. Israel, for instance, are called they're called servants to God, right? In Leviticus 25:55, for the children of Israel are servants to me. They are my servants, whom I took out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And also sons in Deuteronomy 14:1-2. You are children of the Lord your God. Banim, sons, banim atem laHashem Elohechem, to the Lord your God. And then afterwards it says, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a treasured people for him out of all the nations that are upon the earth. In other words, nobody's replacing Israel. Any other people or religion that says that they actually replace Israel, that they are the new Israel, they lie. Straight up. 5 books of Moses and the prophets and everything else. Whatever comes after that stuff, that's made up, like we said. But also, Israel was explicitly, and here's the biggest problem for them, is called the firstborn son of God. In Exodus 4:22, Va'amarta el paro, ko amar Adonai, beni bechori Israel. And you shall say to Pharaoh, so said the Lord, my firstborn son is Israel. That creates problems for a certain narrative, right? Now, how could Israel be all these things? Servants, sons, firstborn son. This is fairly simple to understand. As in the physical world, we were commanded to do the work. Both Jews with the 613 laws of the Torah, and Gentiles, the 7 Noahide laws from the days of yore. When we do this work in this world, we act as servants, though we are sons. However, in the world to come, once the work is done, now we can rest. Now we're like sons. And the firstborn. The Ari says that if Adam and Eve were to have waited until Shabbat, had they entered and become one, the firstborn son of the created beings, Adam and Eve, right? The firstborn son in the image and likeness of God was actually supposed to be Israel. But who was the first actual born son of creation of Adam and Eve? This was Abel, like we said. Who was the father of Cain? It was the Samech Mem, it was Satan. So Abel was the actual firstborn son of Adam and Eve. And that was the soul of Moses. We discussed this in plenty of teachings before, which is why God always weighed the soul of Moses with that of all of Israel, and how Moses was referred to as being 600,000, or, wow, look, there's a woman who carried 600,000 souls in her belly. That was Moses, one man, but equal to all of Israel. That's why he says, if you're going to take them out, then take me out. God's like, I'll start over with you. You are equal to them. You need Israel in the world, otherwise the world disappears. The world ceases to exist because the only reason the world was created was for the sake of Israel. So if I take away Israel but leave just Moses, that is the equivalent to Israel. See what I'm saying? So he got that soul over there. Now, like we said, the first word in the Torah is Bereshit, at first. And the last word is Israel, Israel, Bereshit Israel. Meaning, the first was Israel, and backwards, Israel at first. At first, Israel, Israel at first. Okay. The first thought that God had creating reality itself was for the sake of Israel, and everything that came afterwards, which was literally everything, right, was and is for the sake of Israel, including Mashiach. In other words, Mashiach's purpose is to redeem Israel and those who join Israel, by assisting them in the conclusion of the rectification of the world. This is not to say that the righteous Noahides will not partake in the new world as well, so long as they join Israel, not necessarily through conversion. Either you're Israel or you're not, but you don't have to be part of Israel in order to have a place and a share in the world to come. This we know. Not through conversion, but through recognition of the God of Israel. Excuse me. In the Book of Wonders, it said, Adam reincarnated into David, and David grasped the crown, for that is where his name is, in Keter. And that same soul will descend in order to save Israel, that is Mashiach, which is hinted in the name Adam, Aleph Daled Mem, Adam David Mashiach. And a new soul shall descend with him. Because up until now, we're all reincarnations coming back to how should we say, to sift through and refine those sparks, the holy sparks. So a new soul is going to descend with him, and they are Caesar, or emperor, and viceroy. Now, remember, before some of you are going to get very excited over there, I'm sure, these were terms used thousands of years ago based on the popular language and examples of the time, as the most powerful man was Caesar, or emperor. Okay, so let's not... Emperor, meaning the highest rank, that is the representing the Shekhinah, and viceroy is Mashiach with the Nefesh of David. Regarding what is said, David Melech Yisrael Chave Kayam, David, king of Israel, lives and is present. It says that he himself is alive and present, and in the future he will wear another garb, meaning a new appearance, new physical appearance, just as Elijah is seen sometimes, not as he originally looked. We've learned every time Elijah comes through the firmament, he receives a physical form. Every time it could be different. Every time. And he goes where he is needed. But when he goes back out through the firmament, then he becomes a spiritual being again. In other words, in order to exist in these realms, you need the right spacesuit, if you will. That's why when we said the greatness of Moses, he was the only man alive in the physical form that walked around in the spiritual realm without being shed of his physical being, because he was so refined. You see? In the book Degel Machane Ephraim, the flag of the camp of Ephraim, Parashat Behar, it says, O Dodo o Ben Dodo igalenu, either his beloved or the son of his beloved will redeem us. As said in Sanhedrin 98, the Holy One, blessed be he, will raise for them another David, as taken from Jeremiah 30 verse 9, and they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will establish for them. It is not stated I establish, but I will establish, indicating that the name of the future king will be David. The word for his beloved is Dodo, right? Daled, Daled, Vav, which are the letters of David. Daled, Vav, Daled. These are Dodo, his beloved is David. It's in the name. Meaning the Redeemer will either be David himself or the son of David. And we can see it from Song of Songs 2:16. Dodi li va'ani lo haro'eh bashoshanim. My beloved is mine, and I am his who grazes among the roses. So, my David is for me, and I am for him who shepherds the roses. Who are the roses? Israel. Also, earlier in the chapter, in 2:2, it says, as a rose amongst the thorns, so my beloved among the daughters. That is Israel, the rose, and the thorns, guess what? Guess who? You got it. We'll just call it the idolatrous nation, amongst the idolatrous nation. Of David it is said in Psalms 2:9, I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son. This day I have begotten you. Now there's another hint also in Isaiah 54:12 regarding the two Davids. Now keep in mind, David is written in two ways, okay? One without the letter Yud, so it's Daled, Vav, Daled, which we see in Samuel and throughout the prophets and the Psalms in most places. But the name David with the letter Yud, Daled, Vav, Yud, Daled, because otherwise it's a punctuation beneath the Vav, the chirik that gives it the E sound. So it's David, which is instead of the letter Yud, you see? So if you add the letter Yud, you get the E sound, so David. All right, so there's two ways to write David, one with Yud, one without the letter Yud. The one with the letter Yud is written in Chronicles, Ezra and Nehemiah, Song of Songs, Ezekiel, and in others. This letter Yud is within the name of God, as in the Yud Ke Vav Ke, and it refers to the supernal wisdom connecting to the crown, to Keter. What did we say before? David was grabbing onto the crown. So we see from supernal wisdom, Chokhmah, and supernal Binah, that's the Yud and that's the Hey. That's why we call it Hallelujah, Yud Hey, right? Every time we say Yah, that's the upper Sfirot. And then the Vav, that is the Ze'ir Anpin, the 6 middle Sfirot. And then we have the final Hey, which is Malchut, kingship. That is where David resides. And then we go up from kingship once everything is complete, from kingship all the way to Keter. So the Pinta Yud, it's called, the top squiggle of the Yud, that is connecting to Keter, the supernal crown. Meaning there is a reference to spiritual David and the soul of Mashiach in the days to come. Isaiah 54:12. This chapter is all about the final redemption and the ingathering of Israel, and it hints towards the two Davids. So look at this. It says, I'll first read in English, then in the Hebrew. And I will make your windows of jasper and your gates of carbuncle stones and all your borders of precious stones. Where's the hint? We don't know. So let's read in the language that counts. V'samti kadkod shimshotaich ושערייך לאבני אקדח וכל גבולך לאבני חפץ. What is translated as jasper. Kadkod. So, and I will place, it says, I will place kadkod at your gates, okay, or at your windows. So, David without the letter Yud, the numerical value is 14. So you should know, the number of David is 14. That's also the number Yad, Yud Dalid, which symbolizes strength. And David with the Yud, you add Yud, that's another 10, that's 24. Like the 24 books of the Tanakh, like the 24 gifts that a husband gives his bride on the wedding day, just like the 24 gifts that God gave Moses to give to Israel, his bride, on the wedding day when they received the Torah. Kaf Daled, Kad Kod, Kaf Daled, that's how it's spelled. Kaf is 20, Daled is 4. 24, one David, 24, second David, Kad Kod. Get it? 24 and 24, second David, hinting at king and viceroy. And though David can be spelled both ways, meaning king and viceroy, they are still both David. There's another hint in Ezekiel 34, 23 to 24. Check it. Because in the English, this is non-existent. It says David twice in these verses. It actually says David with the Yud and David without the Yud. The first David is with the Yud, the second David is without the Yud. The first is a shepherd, and the second is a prince, alluding to king and viceroy. So again, Ezekiel 34, 23 to 24, open that up. והקימותי עליהם רועה אחד, וראה את הן את עבדי דוד. And I shall put over them one shepherd, and he will shepherd them, namely my servant David. This is David with the Yud. And then the second verse, in 24, it says, ואני השם אהיה להם לאלוקים, ועבדי David nasi betochem. And I, the Lord, shall be to them a God, and my servant David, without the Yud, Dalid Vav Dalid, will be a prince in their midst. I am the Lord, I, the Lord, have spoken. Great stuff. It's like right there, but again, you need to know what you're looking for. In Rabbi Moshe David Vali's commentary on these verses, he says, this is a hint that David himself will be living at that time and will not lose his reign, since there will be no more jealousy in the world. And King Mashiach, who is from the root of the soul of David, will not envy the greatness of David, nor will David envy the greatness of King Mashiach, who is considered his own son. The secret of the matter is that the holy reign of the supernal David will spread among them both. You see, in Psalms 132:17 it says, there I shall cause David's horn to sprout. I have set up a lamp for my anointed. So we have Shamat Smiach Keren le David, Arachti Ner Limshichi. You see, knowing what we know, this can strongly be hinting towards two Davids. You could read it as one, David is the anointed, or there is David, and then there's also the anointed, hinting towards Mashiach. In Otzara Midrashim, a compilation of ancient Midrashim, it says in Masechet Kelim, part 12, and 12 more precious stones were delivered to him by the hand of Chiluk, ben Shimul. Now, Chiluk comes from, that's the name. His name is Chiluk, and his father's name is Shimul. But now, Chiluk comes from the word lechalek, to divide. And Shimul comes from the word to guard, lishmo, to guard, to keep. And this person was a Levite. To be kept and returned to the tribes, which had the names of the tribes engraved on them, which shone on the heads of the tribes, being superior and precious one above the other. And no king and prophet, no one knew where they were stored except Chiluk, son of Shimu, the Levite, the one who divides, the son of the keeper. This is amazing. Everything's within the name. And the rest of the wealth and honor that was in Jerusalem. He took them from the angel's command, and they returned, and Shimur and Chiluk, father and son, and their Levite companions brought them to Michael and Gabriel. And all Israel hid their vessels until a righteous king arose for Israel. And not only that, but they swore a great oath to each other that they would not reveal the vessels until David, the son of David, arose. David ben David arose and delivered into his hands vessels of silver and vessels of gold that they had hidden at the time when the exiles of Israel were gathered from the four winds of the world. Again, has yet to happen. And he ascended to greatness and exalted above the land of Israel. And at that time, a great river issued from the Holy of Holies, which was called Gihon. We have the Gihon Springs today. It's coming up from the bottom of Mount Moriah, and it comes out over there on the eastern side of the city of David in the valley over there, right across from the Mount of Olives. I mean, if you go into the tunnels, the city of David tunnels, there's the dry tunnels, and then there's the water tunnels. And it's pitch black. You got to go with one of those headlights on your thing. Wear shorts and sneakers or flip-flops. Don't flip-flops. You'll lose your flip-flops. But you get it, and you're going to walk through these tunnels. This is fresh spring water coming from the depths of the earth exactly in this pot. And so this is going to just, boom, overflow. In any case, at that great time, a river issued from the Holy of Holies, which was called Gihon, and it flowed to the great and terrible desert, and it mingled with the Euphrates river, and immediately all the vessels will rise up and be revealed. How are gold and silver vessels going to rise up? Do they not sink? Maybe time of miracles? Just saying. Okay. So now we have David, son of Ishai, and David, son of David. And so, what's the deal? Good question. Do we have two separate individuals, David and Mashiach ben David? We've brought many references, either hinting at or stating that they are two. And the Tanakh is filled with these hints, which you may only be able to spot if you read the Hebrew and if you know exactly what it is that you are looking for. Otherwise, it's just going to be reaching. Well, as we said earlier, these two, even if they are two, they're actually one. Ravali goes on to explain regarding David Chai v'Kayam, David lives and is present, meaning, he says, he exists in his nefesh. The nefesh is, it's all going to be translated as nefesh, and neshama is all going to be translated as soul. They are indeed all part of the soul, but the nefesh resides in the blood. And then you have the ruach and the neshama, the spirit, and then the neshama, the soul. Okay? So, he exists in nefesh, ruach, and in neshama, and he will be revealed once again. And this revelation is called Mashiach ben David. So the revelation, that's the name of the revelation, Messiah, son of David. As we have seen different opinions regarding him returning in his original form, as in the actual body of David, king of Israel, who ruled back then, meaning he's going to return, it's going to be the same looking guy, or, like we just read now, in a new form. Or that his soul will be infused in Messiah, meaning the soul of David that was infused in the new body that is. But rather, the actual soul of David will be reincarnated in King Messiah, who comes from the seed of David. And it will be that he is like David himself. You see, all these things, it all comes from the same root, and it goes out, it spreads out, but it comes back to the same, it goes back to the same point. There, he also says that the King Messiah will be infused with the souls of David and Moses together, which is called Messiah ben David. You see? There are many different options, and all of them make sense. Like, we can actually back everything up. All that being said, we conclude this class. I know there's a lot going on here. We conclude this class with the words of our sages from Sanhedrin 98b, where it says, "Of these things, we do not know how they will be until they come about. And the one who knows the truth of the matter will see them in a vision and not through riddles for the sake of God's mighty name." God doesn't stutter. And as the Rambam so wisely states, man shall not know how they will be until they will be, and still he should await and have faith. And that's our class. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. My email is below. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.